in the second movie, I do like the second movie. All right, it is a good movie, but it's not better than the first one in my opinion. Mainly because the second movie is more on the lines of a summer blockbuster movie, whereas the first movie is more on the lines of a film noir. Like, there's an obvious difference. You know, the second movie has a bigger budget, so they're allowed to do more action. But there's also a lot of like, you can tell that the tone is a lot less darker than the first movie, and if you notice, the shots are more in the daytime, so there's an obvious shift in there's a shift in tone. And it's these changes that make me like Terminator 2 not as much as the first one. Like, I'm still saying it's not bad. I'm just saying if I had to choose which one is my favorite, I have to go with the first one. Now, without comparing Terminator 2 to the original, Terminator 2 on its own is still a pretty good movie. I mean, I don't really have to talk about it that much, but it's it's the story of the Terminator who's been reprogrammed from to protect the leader of the Resistance's the leader of the Resistance when he was in his childhood, and the machines send their own Terminator to kill the leader, and and even though this was back in the 90s, I still have to admire the effects. Like, the effects for the T1000 is still pretty impressive. Like, I'm still amazed every time I watch it. And um it without comparing it to the first one, the second story, a movie story, is still pretty solid. I mean, there are some parts that I was a little disappointed. Like, the T1000, he came off as more of a special effect poster boy, whatever. Because okay, I have to compare it. If I had to compare the first movie and the second movie, main antagonist, I think the first movie, even though he was not as visually striking as the second ones, the first one came off as more threatening because the first one actually he he acted like a hitman. Like, he used hit resources. He went around asking people. He went down his targets systematically without any emotion, and he did all those also sorts of stuff. The second one, I'm not saying he didn't do it, but the second one, what was his real downfall was his screen time. Actually, like, um, there's that point in the movie where Sarah Connor leaves the group to take down Miles Dyson, and they decide to destroy Cyberdyne. But it's a cool kind of storyline, but it veered off from the just like them running away from the T1000. So the T1000's role in the story was gone for that period of time until he came back after they destroyed Cyberdyne. And that's my problem with this movie's antagonist, because you don't really get to see him apart from him doing special effects. And also on a threatening point of view, he doesn't really come off as that threatening, because his physique, he doesn't, I mean, he looks more in line with regular people because Arnold is big and buff and all, but I actually like Arnold's take on the Terminator, where he's just monotone. It's like, I'm the Terminator, I must kill Sarah Connor. And whereas, what's his name? The guy who played the T1000, he's more on just like acting like a regular person. He doesn't come off as threatening. And I don't know. That's my opinion of the antagonist. And also on the protectors, I actually have to go on like the first movie's protector, Kyle Reese, because I mentioned in the first review that I connected more to Kyle Reese, but it's a really big factor when it's a Terminator protector and a human protector. Like you're gonna lean on the human protector because the Terminator protector, even though he's the more memorable because he's a Terminator, and he's like, oh, why is the machines helping the humans and all? And it goes into philosophical stuff, and that the Terminator learns in the end. But that's all good and all, but in terms of connecting, you're gonna connect to the human more because the Terminator has no choice. He has to protect John Connor. He's programmed like that way. Kyle Reese is not. I mean, he's a human. He didn't have to go unless he was ordered, but then he has thoughts. Like he can, if he got sent and he didn't want to, he could have just abandoned the whole mission and lived in the 80s the rest of his life, which would have been weird. But he didn't. He continues on the mission and he continues on protecting. And even though Sarah hated him at first, he stuck with her. I mean, it makes him the more interesting character because he's the guy that didn't have to go on the mission. And also, there's the thing where Kyle Reese is John Connor's father, which opens up so many arguments, but I'm not gonna go into them. But overall, Terminator 2 is pretty good, and I'm not gonna lie, there are parts of Terminator 2 that are better than the first Terminator, like the action scenes. Sarah Connor was better in the second one, and the addition of John Connor. You actually get to see John Connor in the second one, and it's nice that the first one they kept him blank, like they didn't show his face, and it's just through words like, oh, John Connor is like Jesus Christ and he's the greatest person ever. And in the second one he's just like this weird wimpy kid not wimpy, like weird asshole kid, and he's like, I'm not the protector. Let me look at me. I don't act like a protector. And it when you try to make that connection, it's like it doesn't really work. And that's why the movie's there, that it shows John Connor's progression to becoming a leader, which you see near the end of the movie where he's like, we have to stick together. Like you see where they get the leader kind of thing, something that actually did not get from the third and fourth movie, which is weird. So overall, second movie, did not like it as much as the first movie, but it does not mean it's a bad movie. I mean, if you had to ask me, it's this close. If I had to choose, the margin's this close.